Hi, and welcome to the NBA Economy Show. And this is Fritz Alcindor, and I'm joined by my friend Ken T. How you doing, Ken?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, Fritz.
All right. We're only a week away from the NBA trade deadline, so we're just gonna go into just a few of those trade ideas we had. If you could just give me a moment, actually, 1 second. Okay. All right. So, Ken, could you just say a little bit about yourself?
Fritz and I met as I started writing for the KOT show about like 4 seasons ago. So I've been blogging on and off of the site. I've also blogged in the past for a couple of other sites as well, but really mostly a devoted Nick fan for many years. I go back all the way to the Patrick Ewing era.
Yeah, old
I've
school
seen it
Nick fan.
all.
Yep, yep. Just
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, so we're gonna talk a little bit about the Knicks first. Get our Knicks fans out the way, and then we can go on to around the NBA. So,
Cool.
what are you thinking about the Knicks and just where we're at right now? How excited are you where we're at right now?
Well, like I said, Fritz, you talked about before we came on. It's like I'm totally shocked. Every year since Leon Rose has been there, except for the second year, right? We've made a trade and we've gotten better, right? And we ended the season strong, and we've gradually have improved every year. But this year, the OG Anunoby trade just came out of nowhere, especially for all the friction and the lawsuit, right, that we had going on with Toronto. I thought for sure we would never consummate a trade with them, and I had no idea it would work out this well. Especially, I was really attached to IQ and RJ, so it was really tough to see them go. But like I said, he's fit like a glove. Precious has come in and he's actually been productive. I thought he was more of a throw-in. Um, and McBride has really exceeded expectations. Like you kind of can see the master plan, right? They had IQ, but then they got Brunson and McBride, and then you saw that eventually IQ had to go, and then McBride was being groomed to come in and take over. And his 3-point shooting has been phenomenal. So you could tell like he's a Thibodeau guy, and he's been getting tutored for 3 years on how to play the position, and he's stepping up nicely. So I'm thoroughly excited. Like I said, since the early 2000s, we haven't had much to cheer about. We had that one season with Carmelo. It was a 2012-13, and Carmelo in the vets with Jason Kidd. But we all kind of knew that was a little bit of fool's goal, right? Because all those guys were past their prime, and they were kind of a good regular season. But this is a legit team. It's done really well, and like we talked about, the defense has dramatically improved in January. And we've been missing our whole front line. Like Mitch isn't even back yet. Like I'm just thinking like how better this team will be when Mitch gets back. And what we're going to talk about now, we add another piece during the trade deadline, right?
Yeah,
So there's no superstars out there, but we can continue to get incrementally better. And we can land another piece right now at the trade deadline that's really could push us, I think, to the brink of Eastern Conference Finals. And if things break right, we might actually can get into the finals. Not saying we could win it just yet, but we're slowly getting there. And like I said, it's been year 4 of Leon Rose, so we're doing really well.
yeah, yeah. I'm along the same lines. When they first made that trade, my initial reaction was not good because the first thing they said was Emmanuel quickly, and then they say RJ Barrett and draft picks. I was like, whoa. And I know like Toronto, they were talking about 4 draft picks. I'm like, there's no way they gave up 4 draft picks, but they gave up a second. It's kind of like a first. It's so close to the first round, but overall, it wasn't so bad once you saw it laid out, and then when you see the results, night and day, night and day. So I think a lot of people were apprehensive, especially me, before when they said what the draft compensation was, I was totally shocked. But wow, it's worked out better. I think it worked out probably even better than they thought. Because there's
Yeah,
no way that they
there's no way you
thought.
could have thought this could have been this good, right?
No,
It's no
no.
way.
Especially Precious Yeshua, because like going in, people was like, oh, he's kind of like yeah, he's just not into the game too well, and they kind of just threw him in there, and then now he's actually a valuable piece, and now I think we kind of have to see what we're gonna do going forward, because I don't think he was really factored in to be beyond the summer. So
Yeah, I mean, we needed another body, right? When Mitch went down, right, and then Jericho was also hurt. So you're thinking he might be a guy who could just come in and maybe give you, like 10 minutes or something.
mhm.
But he's done more than that, and he showed a lot of promise. And he's young, like you said. He got drafted by the Heat. Then when the Heat traded him, right, that was already kind of like a red flag. Oh, maybe he's not that good. And then in Toronto, he's had several opportunities. I haven't really followed the situation, but it sounds like um, he really didn't get a true opportunity, especially since they had Pirtle over there,
Mhm.
and and he's raw on top of it. But like here, you can see because we've had to play him, he's gotten that opportunity. And the other thing is like he can actually shoot the three. I mean, he's not good, right? But at least he's a threat, and that's
Yeah.
something you can see like in the Nick culture of development. You see guys get better every year. So if he does come back, if they're able to get him at a good number and he's willing to come back, because he's from New York, you could see him working on his game and becoming at least a competent 3-point shooter, and then that would just totally open up so much on offense, especially for the second unit.
Okay. Yep. And I know you said that maybe there's a piece going forward. Is there like names on the tip of your tongue that this is the name I'd like to see?
All right. Yeah. So the thing is, like, I got through it. Like I was saying before, like, everyone talks about trades and trade rumors. I'm like, listen, as soon as anything is rumored, it's not going to happen, right? Because nobody puts anything out there if it has a chance of coming through. And so I've been really hesitant, but like since I agreed to come on with you, I said, okay, let me do my homework, and I started going through the trade machine, and I said, wait a second, there are some names here, and then what I really so I actually pleasantly surprised with what I saw. And the one thing else I noticed is that like in the East, there's more sellers, right? So overall, there's more buyers in the market this year than sellers, so it's going to be a little harder to get guys. But in the East, there's more sellers than in the West. And part of that is because you got the Lakers and Golden State, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who, in theory, they should just, uh, cut their losses, but because they got LeBron and Curry and they're at the end of their careers, they're going to try to take another swing, right? And go for it. So anyway, with that, I went through, and it's funny. Well, one name came up, but it's really two people. So Bogdanovich. So there's two Bogdanoviches. So there's the
Okay.
one we keep hearing about in Detroit, and I looked at it. So we've seen that trade. I think it's pretty simple. We trade Fournier. We could throw in Grimes if as they want a young player, which I think they do need because I think part of the issue is they got raw young talent like we saw here in New York when we had the kids, but they're not necessarily good on defense or know how to play within the construct of a team. So I could see Detroit trying to take a path, and not just Detroit, but other teams as well, what Toronto did. Don't go for draft picks, but get young guys who are little seasoned, right? Who are about to get to the next tier, and be reliable starters with some all-star upside. And that's what I could see them thinking. Okay, we bring in Grimes, we got Cunningham, we got Ivy. Grimes could be the linchpin, defensive glue guy and spot up shooter we need. And then we could actually give them back their own draft pick, right? Because we take, like, I know you've mentioned this before. You made a good point, and you mentioned it was a couple years ago talking about Dallas. Is because we own their pick, even though it's protected, they can't make any trades until that pick conveys.
Yeah.
So even though that pick is not likely to convey because of the protections for the next couple of years, unless they do something dramatically this summer, uh, it's in their best interest to get their own pick back. And then obviously we could throw in something else, right? Another protected. And the good thing is about Bogdanovich, he has a second year in his deal.
Mhm.
So we keep him for 2 years. It's not just a rental for the end of the year. The other Bogdanovich in Atlanta, uh, Bogdan Bogdanovich, he's an expiring deal. And then what I was noticing is like there's the teams that are the buyers and the sellers. Atlanta's one of the teams on the fence, right?
Mhm.
Because they got stars and they also have a wealth of young players, right? So they don't really need to go in the draft. Plus, the other variable this year that makes things interesting is that no one's talking about this draft, right? Last year it was all Wembanyama, the year before
I
Chet and
I
all these
haven't
guys.
even I
They're
haven't even
saying
heard
this
a
is a
name.
bad draft.
I haven't even
Yeah.
heard, like, you usually have those 3 4 names that just keep circulating. There are no names, or like everybody's just sitting on. There are no names.
Right. So everyone says, oh, you could probably get like a competent guy to come in and like,
Hmm.
plug and play guy. But to your point, there's no one that they can say definitively is a star. So nobody's going to be tanking for draft picks
Hmm.
to move up in the lottery. So so then the other thing you have going on is this that's unique this year is the second apron is going to come into effect next year, and you already saw Memphis, right? Who's got a really good team stacked. This year they're out of it because of injuries, but they bring back the same team healthy next year, and they'll be hungry and they're still young. They could really do some damage. But they turned around and traded Steven Adams for an expiring, right? And some second round picks. Like they don't need any more draft picks, especially second
No.
round picks. But because they're right up against the second apron, they don't want to pay that tax. So you're seeing right there the issue of being a small market team. So so there's going to be some teams, and I think Atlanta's one of them, and I think Chicago's another, where they're on the fence, but it's really in their best interest to trade and but maybe go like the Toronto route. Get some guys who are proven young players at lower salaries that so you can be competitive next year because like I said, there's nobody coming in the draft that's going to get your team excited about
Yeah.
for your team to get excited about. So the one I have with Atlanta, you're gonna like this one, right? It's a three-team trade with the Lakers,
Hmm.
right? Because remember, the Lakers they're one of the teams rumored to want Murray.
Hmm.
So pretty much in the trade, right? Murray goes to the Lakers. Um, D'Angelo Russell goes to Atlanta. Then we also send Fournier out with Grimes. So Fournier and Grimes end up going to Chicago with D'Angelo Russell. And then the Lakers also send one of the young guards, either like Max Christie or the kid they drafted, Jalen Hood, that they drafted this year to Chicago. And then this way, Chicago gets, um, they have like if they choose, they have Russell, who's a vet they can keep. Um, and what do you call it? The Knicks, they get a guy who's an upgrade over Fournier and Grimes. And the key is on the second unit, you don't really need a guy who's a great defender. And because he's an expiring, right, they can't really ask much for him. So we don't have to give up that much for him. So obviously the other piece in it that Lakers to match salaries would also have to throw in Hachimura. So and then Chicago can sell their fans on, hey, we're gonna have Hachimura, we're gonna have Quentin Grimes, Max Christie, and we got D'Angelo Russell's an established player, plus draft compensation. Um, and then, like I said, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong trade. Let me back up. There was two Laker trades. So this trade, let me restart it. I should look at my phone first and set it up correctly. So this trade was for the Knicks, the Bulls, and the Lakers. So the key is that Zach Levine goes to the Lakers, right? So the Lakers need to do something to jumpstart their team. And in this scenario, because he makes 40 million, they got to throw in Hachimura along with Russell. Um, Then the um, the Bulls get Quentin Grimes and Fournier from us, plus a young player from the Lakers. And the Knicks get Hachimura because we still need like a backup uh, forward. Because really the two needs the Knicks have is we need a shot creator in the second unit, but we also need a backup power forward. So right now our backup power forward is really Achua. But I don't know if the Knicks would want to do that deal because then there would be 15 million per year for Hachimura. Hold on. The other deal I had, let me get it up really quick with the so hold on, let me do so yeah, so with this one, like I said, it would be Bogdanovich will go to the Knicks. Murray will go to the Lakers. Then we would send Fournier and Grimes to Atlanta. And then also the Lakers would send either Hood or Max Christie to Atlanta, plus draft compensation. So in that deal, right, we get Bogdanovich, who is a better version of Fournier, who's not playing. Um, and the key is that now that we have Grimes in the second unit, we have that lockdown guard, right, to help compensate for Bogdanovich. And then it's second unit, so you don't have to be a great defender. And like I mentioned earlier, you don't have to worry so much about the draft compensation because Bogdanovich is an expiring contract. So those are like the two
Actually,
main
we're talking about Bogdanovich from Atlanta.
from Atlanta.
Actually, he has
So
a 4 years. Actually, he has 3 more years to go because he was
he has three
extended.
more?
Yeah, he was
Oh, he
extended
was
last.
extended.
Yeah, he was
Oh, okay.
extended.
All right, but what's he extended at? So
18.7.
okay, that's reasonable.
Yeah,
So like I said, that's something you could turn around and trade, right?
yeah.
So
I Okay. Yeah, I had something with Atlanta as well.
what you
Um,
have?
okay, because I'm looking at it a different way because I know it may switch up in the last week, but overall the Knicks want to stay away from expirings. It's one of those weird times the Knicks don't want expiring because if the Knicks want to do something this summer and they're stuck with a large expiring, they're stuck. They can't make a star trade unless you trade Randall. It's
Right.
you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, we
Um,
yeah we need to have somebody on the books if we want to
yeah,
take that big swing for a star
yeah,
if it becomes available.
and
Gotcha.
and Atlanta, where Atlanta is right now, they want their cake and eat it too at the same time. So they want an expiring, they want to duck under the tax. At the same time, they want a starter. So I think that's what's holding up the trade because they kind of want it both ways. It's like you can have one or the other pretty much, but pretty much they're kind of signaling that they want to deal with the Knicks, but the Knicks aren't going to give them everything they want. The Lakers have D'Lo, but D'Lo has another year. They don't want to. They want to duck under the tax and get a starter, so that's not going to work. So what my deal is the Knicks, Lakers, and Atlanta,
Right.
and pretty much what the Knicks are. They're the third team. They're not going to be. They're not going to be the focus of the trade, but they're just going to benefit off of
Uh-huh.
helping each other out. So basically, you're going to take D'Lo, and D'Lo goes to the Knicks, and then for their trouble for taking D'Lo, in his 1 year, they get
Uh-huh.
Jalen Hood Shafino. He's actually going to be really good. He's like one of those talents you could develop. And then they get 2 more second round picks.
Yeah, because I think that's like more realistic
Yeah.
where because we all want the big splashy trade,
Mm-hmm.
but the reality is that you can't force those, right? You just have to be prepared when they present themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've been talking about OG like for 3 years, and we finally got him.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of things have to break right for that to happen. But yeah, I like your trade because um, it gets us incrementally better, right? We're moving something that we're not using. we're keeping somebody on the books, and actually, as a second unit player, he's
Yeah.
serviceable.
Oh, Grimes would have to go to Atlanta. I'm sorry, that's what I didn't put in there. But Grimes would have to go to Atlanta to
Okay,
make it
yeah,
work.
but I
Yeah.
think that
Hmm.
that works. You
Hmm.
got to give up something, and I think also, yeah, like with Grimes, unfortunately, he hasn't really, it's still early, but he hasn't really taken advantage
Hmm.
of the opening that's presented itself with IQ being on. So yeah, I think that's good because right now, I love that after so many years, the Knicks started developing players,
Hmm.
right? Because it's not since like Patrick Ewing came on and they had like the old bomb squad at Knicks, which is before your time when they had like Mark Jackson, Johnny Newman, um, Gerald Wilkins, and a couple other guys that they actually had young guys they developed and they had Rod Strickland. Since then, like they've been on win mode until Patrick Ewing, got too old, and then they were in denial and they kept trying to do quick fixes, right? And it hasn't really been now till like Leon Rose came in that we've actually done, you know, we've had a patient approach, and we've actually started developing players. And but now we got to the point where we're competitive. You got Brunson in his prime, you got Randall in his prime, and you got OG in his prime. Like you gotta go for it, right? So now we're not in a position to really be developing guys. We need guys who can produce right away. So and the next step is, if we can move David, replace DiVincenzo, his spot in the starting lineup with like a star caliber player, right? So you can have three legit scorers, right, in the starting lineup, and then Devo would move to the bench and be a super sub.
Yeah.
So, but to do that, to your point, we got to have some salary to trade. So
Yeah.
I like that trade a lot.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think. Yeah. I really like how the Knicks are developing now, because there's so many years where the Knicks weren't developing. They're going to the draft. They see a guy and he's like, oh, he looks good, and they just throw him in there, and he's like, oh, he's not the guy, and then they would throw him out, and then they really weren't developing. They were just throwing people into the fire, and then you just you
yeah,
didn't quite fit, and then they just throw you out. Now they're getting guys. Hey, he has this quality. He may not work out now, but he has one good quality I know I can use, and then he'll be on the bench. And then he
yeah,
may take a couple years, but he's gonna develop because he has at least one thing I know I can use.
yeah. Fred, it's funny. It's like the formula they got now.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not new. It's kind of what they did like
Mm-hmm.
before our time, like in the '60s, right?
Yeah.
When they developed the championship team. And it was you get these guys who are not like the flashy potential superstar guys. They're the high floor
Mm-hmm.
guys, right? Because those guys tend to get undervalued, right? Especially if a guy's been in the college for more than 1 year. But they're really high character guys who are professional, going to come in, smart, and they can contribute as a role player, like you were mentioning. Then be patient and let them develop out, because like you saw, like Randall, right? He was it wasn't until his fifth year when he got to New Orleans that he became a 20-point scorer.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw Brunson, right? It wasn't until his fourth year in Dallas, and it took Luka getting hurt right before the playoffs for him to fully show his potential. And that's the same thing with a lot of these guys. So it's like you saw it with IQ, right? By year three, he developed. You're seeing it with McBride, year three, he's developed. The same with Mitch, right around through year three, year four, he really clicked, and that's kind of what we've been able to do. So, but like right now, um, like those guys have to be kind of like the eighth or ninth guy in the rotation, because we're at the point where we're knocking on the door to
Mm-hmm.
to compete for a championship. So yeah, I'm with you. Also, really quick, going to the other Bogdanovich. Like I said, we talked about. So that's a very clean trade, right? It's just a question of where do you want to give up the compensation. We talked about maybe just give them back their own pick, which is protected. which has more value to them than to anybody else. And then
Hmm.
maybe we throw in another protected. Um, the other one I liked with Detroit, right? So there's two versions of this. There's one with Burks, and well, yeah, it could just be Burks, right? He's a guy we know, knows the system, can plug and play, especially he's not going to be point guard Burks, right? He would just be off ball Burks, which is fine. Second unit guy. And that's, that's Grimes and a little bit of salary to match because he doesn't make that much. And then, and minimal compensation because he's on a short contract as well.
Hmm.
Then the other one, this is the one I really like, is we trade for Burks and Isaiah Stewart.
Okay. Long contract, but really good contract, I think. I don't think
Right.
he's.
So yeah, because
Yeah.
his contract, it's like a mid-tier. I think it's like it goes up to maybe 15 million a year. It's like 13 or 15 million a year. But but the key is that his salary from this year, which is like around 5, to next year, it doesn't jump up that much like with other players.
Hmm.
So the poison pill is something you can work around because the rule is if you trade a guy who's on a rookie extension, who hasn't started his rookie extension but
You got
already
to
signed it,
average. Yeah, you got to average
it's
his
the
years.
average of the contract. And since he has like a flat contract, right? Because he's making 5.2, and then it's a flat 15, the other four. So you do that with Burks, who's making like what 10 million, and then you trade Fournier, who's making almost 19, plus the 2.3 from Grimes. It works out. It worked
Yeah.
out in the trade machine. You can make it happen. And then, like I said, you're giving them a young player, and you're taking back a young player for a young player, and especially they already have a bunch of bigs, right? Um, Especially they got Jalen Duren, so they're not gonna wanna, you know, they might not want to have him on the books at 15 million, and it might not be a good blend having him and Jalen Duren. So that would be great if we can get him, and then that dude, like he embodies what you think of like a Nick's big man,
Yeah.
and he's from New York, right? If I'm mistaken, I think he's from upstate. So he would be a perfect fit. Uh, you know, like I said, I think he's an upgrade over Precious. So the only thing is Precious probably, he might not be back next year because I could see them as being kind of redundant. But it's an upgrade, right? And it's a guy you have under contract, like you mentioned, for several years at a good price. So
Hmm.
you could either keep him or
Roll him
you could
into a
eventually
trade.
roll him
Yeah.
into a trade.
If I think if this was a month ago, I'd be like, no, that wouldn't happen. But like, I think for where we are right now, that where you can say, hey, we're not too far from like being legit contender, that you may want to take a chance there. And I think you can always, I think you can roll him into a trade this summer and really
Yeah,
wouldn't have an issue.
yeah. Oh, yeah. The other thing I kind of wanted to mention that, like, I
Hmm.
noticed just looking at stuff here is that the Knicks one, like you mentioned, they gotta make sure they get back a contract that's not expiring,
Hmm.
right? So we could still be in the game to trade for Star if they become available.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing too is that when you look at the team, right? Like we're already getting a little ahead of ourselves, but last year we made it to the second round, and there's no reason to think we can't make it back at least to the second round. And once you get to like the second round of the playoffs, the rotations shorten up.
Hmm.
So really, like right now, our rotation, right? It's our starting five, assuming um, Robinson comes back. Then you would have Hart and Hartenstein, who's a center, really as the only two like trustworthy backups, right? Because I mean, yeah, you have Grimes, who's he's kind of proven himself, but like I said, him and McBride, they're still young, and Grimes, Grimes, his skill set's redundant with Hart's.
Hmm.
So and then McBride, even though he's done better, like you're not really gonna be relying on him, right? That's not the game plan.
Hmm.
So they really need to get like another vet to go with Hart and Hartenstein, so you could have that 7 to 8 man rotation when you get deep into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So someone like Bogdanovich, especially the one from Detroit, would be ideal because
Hmm.
he's a vet. He can create offense. Like I said, he's got playoff experience being on Utah. So yeah, the other ones are really quick before we jump off the Knicks. Utah, so it's been mentioned. So I think we can get Clarkson in a deal. Same
He's
thing, Fournier and Grimes are kind of handcuffed to each other. The good thing about Clarkson is I think his contract decreases after this year.
hmm
So this year it's like 24.3, but the next year it drops down. Um, so that yeah. So what happens is when his contract drops down, it becomes more tradable, and then it's also good versus the salary cap, right? The other thing is we could go after Olynyk, right?
yeah, and he's
So
kind
that,
of. I know everybody's been talking about analytic, and then up until a few weeks ago, I don't know. I think I can get it, but now I think it's possible. I
well,
think,
yeah, I'm
yeah,
happy what we have. I think it's more
mhm.
of, hey, you don't think Mitch is going to come back? Then
I know,
maybe you get Olynyk.
yeah, I
That's
think
that's. But I'm with you on that.
I'm a lot more open in the once this we've gone on the streak, we've seen what OG is. I'm probably more open to taking a little bit more risk than I was last time. Last time it was like let's improve and let's see where it goes. But now he's like, okay, let's you may want to push out there to get your team a little
Oh,
better. Yeah.
so speaking of risks, thank you for mentioning that. And that I was going through really quick. Like I said, I haven't done a lot of work on this, but one guy I see as like a big X factor in this trade deadline that nobody wants to talk about for valid reasons is Bridges from
Bridges, yeah.
Charlotte. Because if I'm Charlotte, I was like, listen, you brought the guy back because he's an asset, but the dude's a liability, and then you got the young kid you just drafted. You want to go young. I think they want to move off of him.
They
He's only making like 5.7, and so I don't think they want to re-sign him. And but they also don't want to lose him for nothing. And all these other teams, right, that are like contenders,
hmm
like they're willing to sell their soul, right?
yeah.
Especially Phoenix to get a guy with his talent level at that price point. So I was going to ask you, how would you approach that? Because I don't know if I want to give up Grimes for him, but I could see, maybe
Oh,
some sort of
I
round
wouldn't
picks or
I wouldn't want him on the Knicks, but I just went on him. I just want to explain a little bit about his
yeah.
situation and then why Charlotte is giving him up for cheap. Not only is he because of the situation he was in this summer. Remember, last year was the incident, and Charlotte did not sign him, and so he became a free agent again. And then Charlotte signed him for 1 year. So since they signed him for 1 year, they have no bird rights. So you know how usually you have a player and you say, "Hey, I have him and I can pay him whatever the next year." Can't.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So they can't pay him whatever. So whoever they trade him to, even Phoenix know he's not going to come back. This is a one shot deal with Phoenix. So Phoenix wants to get him, and it's a one shot deal. Every team, but they're not going to give up a lot because they know it's a
No
one
bird
shot.
rights.
Yeah, so they might give up a second round pick, which is crazy, but only a second round pick. You might go for like a second round pick and an average player, which is weird.
Right, but if you're a team
hmm
like Boston,
Boston, yeah,
Milwaukee, or the Clippers, Lakers, like one of these teams where it's like, listen, you're not gonna play any young players anyway, especially second round picks. Why wouldn't you just give up two or three if you think he's the guy who can help you win a championship this year, right?
yeah.
So it's okay, but you definitely wouldn't consider him for the Knicks. I'm with you. I think I'm big on
It's
character.
not his game. It's what comes with him. So
Yeah,
that's
I think to
yeah.
me it's the character thing, and we finally got a good culture,
hmm
a bunch of guys. You saw like Precious act, he was all possessed at the end of the game against
hmm
Indiana. Hartenstein, he's all in about the team. Like everyone, like you could tell, like towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, you can tell there was kind of a rift because of competing interests on the team, right? IQ realized he wasn't in the long-term plans because of Brunson. And then the same thing with RJ, he realized he wasn't a fit because, they prioritized Randall and Brunson's a shoot first point guard. So, there was friction. But now you got OG who seamlessly fits in. He's going to get paid. And then the other guys are happy with their roles. Then you don't want to bring in one guy who could be a little toxic,
Yeah.
right? So, and especially, he might not be willing to roll up his sleeves and get dirty like all our guys. So,
Yeah.
okay, cool. All
I
right, so yeah,
yeah, I really think
so
he's
that's
gonna be
kind
a
of what
sub.
I had.
Yeah. I really
That's
think
what I had for the
yeah.
Knicks.
Yeah, me too. So I wanted to bring up a team. I want to kind of get out like the outlier team. So we're gonna like Golden State is one of my teams, and Golden State is in one of those weird situations where you thought before this new CBA that Clay, Steph, Draymond, they were gonna ride out into sunset together. They were gonna be they were gonna retire together. The new CBA, that is just not gonna happen. And I think they made it Steph's, kind of like Steph's team, and I think everybody else. I don't think they're not gonna all be there in a couple seasons.
No, yeah, I agree. The NBA, they overreacted when they won the championship because everyone was complaining, oh, they won a championship. But the reality is they didn't buy a championship. They they just ate money, right? Instead of releasing Klay Thompson or cutting salary because of Klay Thompson's salary. And even back then, even like Draymond, like nobody wanted him at 25 million. So I think they had a couple of guys who were overpriced was the point,
Mm-hmm.
but they overreacted because they won. But nobody talks about the Clippers or the Nets, all the other teams that broke the bank and the
Mm-hmm.
salary cap to try to win that didn't do anything. So anyway, yeah, to your point, it's going to change how everyone looks, and now like the age of the super team's gone, right? It's going to be maybe
Mm-hmm.
two superstars, and that's it. Even then, right? Because like you saw, like they're talking Boston, like there's going to come a judgment day where they're going to figure out what they do because Jaylen Brown's going to be making 60 million, and then Tatum's going to be making 60 million. So they're saying like maybe even those two guys
Yeah.
can't be together. So yeah, definitely see that coming.
Yeah.
So do you have any proposals for
Okay.
Golden State or
Okay. So for Golden State, this deadline is gonna kind of tell you what's gonna go on with Klay Thompson. Are they gonna Are they gonna do it one more year? Are they gonna take? Hey, we're just gonna try it one good time next year, and then we'll just break it up. Or will Steph say, hey, can we break it down now and retool it? So they can break it down and retool it, or they can make sure that next season they have one last shot. Clay, Steph, Draymond. And I have no idea which way they want to go. so
uh-huh.
so the one person I think for sure that they at this deadline that they probably want to move is Andrew Wiggins.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. But keep going. I don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah,
I'll
so
talk.
Andrew Wiggins is the one guy I think they want to get out there. So if I were them, I would send Andrew Wiggins if I can pawn him off on the Bulls.
I
And I
was thinking the
and I
same thing.
and I'm I want to bring DeRozan back. And in this summer, I could see if DeRozan would take a slight pay cut.
Okay, I had a different situation. So it's funny because I was thinking earlier in the year, I was like, I could see um Wiggins going to Toronto, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the same reasons RJ went to Toronto. But now that they got RJ, I
Yeah.
don't think Toronto, because the thing is that when I was going through the list, I was like we talked about it, like nobody is really tanking this year for draft picks, right? To move for lottery positioning.
Mm-hmm.
But the one team I'm seeing that they are kind of doing it
Hmm.
is Toronto. Because what happens is, remember, Toronto made that trade with San Antonio for Pirtle, the center, and they traded them a top 6 protected pick. And right now they're like 6th in the lottery, right? I think looking at Tankathon, yeah, they're 6th. So they already got everybody excited because they got IQ and RJ, and especially RJ because he's Canadian. Um, and I don't know if they really want to trade for another Canadian, right?
Hmm.
Especially they already have RJ and
And
it's kind of
Wiggins has had
similar,
a horrible year. But
right? Because they already took a risk with RJ and his salary,
yeah.
so I don't think they're going to want to do. And it's like, how much more are you going to get the people of uh, Toronto excited? You already brought home one son. You
Hmm.
don't need to bring two. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like your idea. And you're thinking, and I thought the same thing. Because and here's what I was thinking, right? Because everybody's kind of a copycat around the league. They see something, they emulate it. And what happened with Portland, right?
Hmm.
They went from Dame, then they traded down to Holiday from a $40 million player to a $30 million player, and then finally Brogdon, a 20 million plus player, right? And then that provided them a bunch of cap flexibility. So I could see Chicago doing the same thing. We got this guy who's 40 million, nobody wants. We actually played better when he was hurt than when he played. We got 4 more years at 40 million. Let's move him, but we don't want to tank or look like we're tanking, especially the GM. Because that's the other thing people don't talk about is the general managers, right? Like you don't want to, they want to save their jobs.
Hmm.
So the president of basketball operations for the Bulls, he came from Denver. He left Denver for the Bulls, and Denver won a championship. And he's at risk now after the moves he made of bringing in DeRozan, Ball, and to play with and giving Levine a contract that that's all going to crash and burn, and he's going to look, he's going to get fired. So the bottom line is you swap out Levine for Wiggins, right? So you're taking out a 40 million contract for a guy who's not that much worse, right? Maybe 85% of Levine in the $20 million range.
Hmm.
So I see them doing the same thing like Portland did, the same thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris Paul is still on the Warriors. His contract is a little weird. If you look at it, it'll say 2 years, so it says he has one more year, but he can be cut this summer and they don't owe next year.
Right. So he's
So
like he's in essence an expiring.
yeah. So based on who they bring in, is if they're gonna cut Paul or not this summer. Not now, but this summer. Are they gonna cut Paul? I think if they get somebody, I think if they can get somebody good with Wiggins, they'll cut Paul. And just to duck under that the apron, nobody wants to be on that second apron. And you can't even use your mid level. So
Yeah, everybody's scared of that. Like right now, you can't even get guys in the buyout market because we're all talking about trades. But like some of these teams, like Boston,
mhm.
Denver, Milwaukee, um, the Clippers, like they really can't make trades, right? And what they need is like one little piece. Like even OKC, like OKC needs a big man. If they can just get a veteran big man who can come in, give them 15 minutes, 5 fouls, they'll be exponentially better. So, but if you're over the second apron, you can't even get anybody in the buyout market.
Yeah, yeah. So I think if you go, I think over $7 million, and they buy you out, you can't sign for minimum on those teams. Uh, so I think yeah. So I mean, it's coming to find out what decision they make. I'm looking at Jay Ellis's comment. He says he doesn't think Steph is gonna make that call. So the call of
Right.
if we're gonna do it one more time, or if they're gonna retool it. I guess he
Oh,
thinks that's up to the people that be, but not Steph is not gonna be the one to shove Clay out the
well,
door.
the thing is, he's not going to push Clay out the door because you got to
Hmm.
think like the Warriors. They're not like the Lakers, right? They've they've never been good up until this point.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, they were good in the 70s, but nobody remembers that. So Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond, like they're gonna have statues in front of that stadium,
Mhm.
and they're the foundation of their culture. And Clay's on the last year of his deal, so next year they can bring him back and be like, "Hey, Clay, we can't pay you 40, especially your performance and the second apron.
Mhm.
Come back at a more reasonable number and
What they
retire
did
as
with
a
Draymond. That's what they did with Draymond.
right." So they can save themselves
Mhm.
like at least 20 million per year, maybe more, by getting him. And even like he talked about it recently, made some comments because Steve Kerr already planted the seed
Yeah.
because like, tell
Uh,
him like, hey, like,
yeah. The word
your
is
prime is over.
they offered him they offered him 24 a year, and he said no. And they thought they were being generous.
Yes,
And
let's see.
and,
I
and
think I think he'll come around. I think
yeah,
he'll come around. But anyway, to your point,
yeah,
I don't think they're gonna make that call now, unless he becomes just totally and total malcontent.
yeah.
I don't see him because, like I
Yeah.
said, he's
I
he's the second Flash brother.
Yeah. I don't think it's gonna be him, but I think Wiggins is the one. Wiggins is the
I
one to
think
go.
Wiggins needs to change the scenery,
Yeah.
and I think Chris Paul, if they're gonna swing for a star, I could see it being Chris Paul because what do you call it? He's not coming back next year. He's expiring. And then if you replace him with like a Zach Levine, right? If you get some sort of combination of
Yeah.
you send Wiggins and Paul out, which is about like 55 million. You bring in someone like Levine, so you can slide Clay to the three. Then you have a second creator with Clay. And then you could bring in like another big guy, like maybe Patrick Williams or something like that, because they still need size. All of a sudden that Warriors team looks a lot better
Yeah.
because now Clay is more now he's like the third option,
Hmm.
and then you get a little more size as well. Because right now they're too small and they lack shot creation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I had JLS. He said Chicago might be stuck with Zach. Everything. Yeah. Everybody says he has no trade value. Like they've been trying to. He can't stay. He can't stay healthy. Like last year,
right.
there were the Knicks were everybody was interested, but he cannot stay healthy this year. And
Well, I think
and his
yeah.
in his in his price tag keeps going up. So unless they have something to sweeten the deal, I don't think he might be going very far
Well,
unless Golden State, you know,
well,
yeah,
it's funny. So what? Couple things. Well, one I heard is right. Well, point I think you got to think about it. Right? Who would want Zach Levine? Someone who feels they're a Zach Levine away from winning,
mhm,
who's in win now mode. Right? They're not worried. They're a big market. They're not worried about salary, and they don't have assets, so they don't have options. Right?
yeah,
So who are those teams? The Lakers, Warriors, and the Sixers.
yeah,
Those are so I predict he's going to go to one of those three.
yeah. And I
Now
think
with
he'll.
somebody
I think you're right along those lines, and I think it's gonna be hilarious how low he goes for.
right, so
Yeah,
I like I said, these guys all eventually get moved, and
yeah,
he's still young. It's not like he's bad.
yeah,
And so like Philadelphia, right? The guy in Philadelphia, Daryl Morey, like his job's on the line. So and he's got and Joel Embiid's, how much longer his knees are going to last, and he doesn't care. Like as long as if he could bring a finals or a championship or even a finals appearance this year, his time in Philadelphia will be seen as success, and then he can leave and let someone else worry about cleaning up the mess. And the same thing with the Lakers. Like the Clippers are looking really prime. The Lakers are looking old, and the guy who's the GM over there with the Lakers, he's freaking out, right? So he's thinking, I got to win now, especially LeBron, has a lot of power. So he's going to feel the pressure. And you've
yeah,
seen the Lakers do it before. Like they've made pressure moves. Um, So I could see that, and then, like we just talked about with the Warriors, like they feel like their window's closing. Now the other guy I think that's more likely to go to Philadelphia is DeRozan because he's expiring. His game kind of fits
Hmm.
better in Philadelphia, right? With Maxi and Embiid, and he's not going to cost you as much.
Yeah.
So I could see either one of them. But if I was Daryl Morey, the lower risk move, and the guy who's probably even better is really DeRozan.
Yeah.
And all you, like you said, you're playing for this year. You're not playing for 3 or
Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah. They're gonna have to figure out what's up with Embiid because that situation with his leg.
Right.
He hasn't looked good. Um. You know. They kind of backtracked yesterday, and they didn't. Now they said they don't even confirm that's meniscus. So
Well, you saw when he played against the Knicks, right?
yeah.
He had to leave the game early. He didn't look right.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've always been afraid when they had these trade rumors of Embiid coming to the
No.
Knicks. I'm like, I think if he ever, I think in the next couple of years he's going to break down. So
Yeah.
I don't
I think
want him.
he's Amari. He's Amari. So he's gonna be
Yeah,
great, and then one day he's not. Like one day he's not. It just
it's a ticking time bomb.
yeah.
That's,
And with the meniscus, like I've had that injury. Like I'm scared because he hasn't looked good in weeks, and it could
listen,
be something bigger. So I had a meniscus injury, and the thing about the meniscus, it's like a rip. It's very simple, but in my case, I went in for a meniscus surgery. They said, "Oh, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you can walk out of here, no issue." And then when they did the surgery, they opened it up, and then it was like, "Oh, you have a cracked kneecap." So it can hide other things if. And you've seen him the last couple of weeks, like he's been limping around, so he might actually have something underneath there. So that's kind of like where I'm.
it looks bad.
It
When
looked
I saw
bad.
the, and listen, you know what his nickname was when he first came in the league?
Yeah,
His first couple of years,
yeah,
It was Joel MD
yeah,
because he was hurt the first 3 years.
yeah.
So he barely played. He played like 30 games in his first 3 years. So um yeah, so it's gonna be interesting, but I could see the Sixers also being a challenge to the Knicks to get Bogdanovich,
Yeah.
uh especially the one from Detroit,
Hmm.
because they need, like I said, a third scorer. You just talked about Embiid. They're on the clock. So I could see them trying to push, especially Daryl Morey loves to push his chips all in and go for it. So that'd be the only concern. I think someone like a Burks is more realistic for the Knicks,
Hmm.
um, because lower cost and there isn't as much demand for him. And I've noticed Detroit looks like they've been showcasing him,
Hmm.
so we'll see. But who else did you have for the other teams? What other moves you?
Okay. Uh, Actually, I had just had teams I wanted to talk about, like the Timberwolves. I think they're the most unique situation in the league. They're first in the West. If they weren't first in the West, this team would not be together. This team would not be together. And
I think next year they might have to break
yeah,
some
yeah.
pieces up.
So I think this deadline, I think they're kind of stuck to stay together. I think they, I think they may do a little trade to maybe sneak a player in that they may
What
not
kind
be
of
able
player do you
to.
think they need? What do you think?
Um, I think they need a point guard. I
That's exactly what I was thinking.
so
Like
I mean,
Conley
Conley
up
may
there,
come
need a
back.
little insurance.
Yeah, Conley he probably will come back, but you need somebody behind. You need someone learning behind him.
Maybe Lowry. No, but I'm saying like at the trade deadline,
Yeah,
I think they might try to get Lowry in the buyout market.
yeah. So I think they
Like
need
they just
another point
they
guard.
need like somebody else low cost because like you said, they don't have any assets. They traded them all away for Gobert.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
yeah,
I think they're definitely gonna do a small deal. They're gonna do something. Uh,
yeah. What do you think about OKC?
OKC. When I looked at OKC, they're like perfect. Next year, right now, they're under the first apron. Next year, they're still under the first apron. The thing about the OKC is that you're gonna the way they've been formulating their players, you're gonna see a lot of those names that we kind of covered it before falling off OKC. Now
Yeah,
this
they got
is
too many
this is
young
where those
guys.
names are gonna they're gonna fall off. The couple years ago, everybody wanted Poku. I think this summer Poku is gonna he's gonna be somewhere
That
else.
that's exactly I was thinking. Because one trade scenario I had, and I heard somebody say like, well, they mentioned the type of player that OKC wants, and then I said, okay, what would be the trade package? So, like you mentioned, OKC, they don't have a lot of salary to trade, right? The only guy they have, which I don't think anybody would want, is Bertans, right?
Hmm.
So, so he's the only guy with some sort of salary that they'd want to move on from.
Hmm.
But I think he's got another year. There's an
Hmm.
early termination option, but but I don't think anybody really want him. But anyway, the guy who's low cost and perfect for them is Andre Drummond, who's on the
Yeah,
Bulls.
yeah.
So he makes like 3 million or so minimum.
Hmm.
Now, if I was the Bulls, I would trade him and I would try to get Pokusevski, as you just mentioned, and I would see if I could also get Terrence Mann
Yeah,
because there's still I didn't realize it, but
he's kind of out of the rotation.
well he's out of the rotation, but for the right reason because they're just stacked.
Yeah,
But with the Bulls, I thought Lonzo Ball was coming off the books.
one more year. Yep.
His last year is a player option. I thought it was a team option.
Hmm.
Everyone remember making fun of the Knicks. Look at the Bulls. Now everyone's like, oh, Knicks were smarter not to go after Lonzo.
Yeah.
So anyway, with Lonzo, you don't know what you're going to get from him next year. You bring in Trey Mann
Hmm.
to play the rest of the year, see what you got in him, and Poku. Infuse the team with young talent. And I think Poku would be a nice compliment to Patrick Williams.
Yeah.
So you have those two, and then you still have Vucevic. So you could kind of retool similar to Toronto, and then and see what you have there. And like I said, Drummond, he's a vet. He's not part of the long-term future. And with guys like that, teams usually want to get them on winning situations, right? Because you want to keep the relationship with the players and the agents. So I could see them saying, "Hey, we're not going anywhere. Let's do right by Andre.
Hmm.
We'll put him on OKC, and then him on OKC, backing up Chet."
Yeah.
Because
That'd
that's
be
the
nice.
issue. When they get in the playoffs, it's going to be too much for Chet because they have nobody else. They don't have another big
Hmm.
man. So so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. They have an embarrassment of riches. So I mean, like
And they
they
have a
could
bunch of pieces to throw
they
at anybody.
yeah, they could pick and choose, but they got so much talent that they're basically gonna be giving it away. So
Right, because they can trade with pretty much anybody, right? The
yeah,
only thing is matching the salaries.
yeah.
And yeah, and the other thing I was looking at is a lot of teams need big men, backup big men, not like
Hmm.
starters. So so it's gonna be interesting. So luckily the next it would be ideal if we had a good backup power forward, maybe somebody kind of a little better than Precious who can play two positions, center and power forward, or like Obi, small forward, power forward.
Hmm.
But it's not pressing because like right now when I'm looking at what everybody needs in the market, there's going to be a lot of competition for big men.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, that covers
Yeah.
them. The next team I have is Houston.
What do you
And
got for Houston?
so Houston, we're just gonna go over the situation a little bit right now. They're rumored to want to upgrade. They said they want to push. They want to push into the playoffs. And
Yeah.
they said Jalen Green isn't a core piece anymore.
Oh,
So
wow.
I think that they may want to use Jalen Green and picks, and they're looking to like upgrade. So
Wow.
they want to win. So I'm not sure what they want to do. Um,
Yeah, because they can't trade you can't trade the point guard. He
mm-mm.
makes too much money.
Yeah.
Van Vliet. And then Brooks makes a lot of money for what
Mhm.
he is.
Yeah.
And I think were you the one who mentioned Tari Eason? Might be a Tari
Tari, okay, with Tari Eason is like their coveted piece. Like he's not a starter, but they love Tari Eason. Like even though
He's a
he's
glue
not a
guy.
starter, even
He's
though he's not,
raw, but
yeah, because he just naturally. But he's a tweener. He's a tweener. He's not quite a power forward, not quite a small forward. He's kind of in that Precious Achua, you know,
well,
athletic.
I see him kind of like a Herb Jones type
Okay,
of guy,
yes, yeah,
like a
in that
raw
mold.
wing who can, great for switches, right? Can cover
Yeah,
multiple positions, especially on
but
the
his
perimeter.
offense is just not quite there yet.
Yeah, he's too
It,
raw,
yeah,
but he's a
offense.
Udoka guy. He's a
Yeah,
guy like Udoka likes. So
yeah. So I mean, they're not going to trade him, even though everybody puts his name out there. Um, I think, yeah, I think Jalen Green. I think this is their last time getting big value for Jalen Green, because
oh
once everybody figures you out, then your value drops. I think this is their last stop before his value.
yeah, because like I
He's at,
haven't seen him play much.
he's at that
Well,
he's kind
but
of
a
at
lot of
that
these young
RJ
guys,
stage.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
last year they were talking about RJ and a trade for Mitchell, as the star piece. This year, if you took RJ, you could not make him the star piece for Mitchell. So, I mean, he's kind of at that point where he's at that 17, 19 points a game, but he's at the point where his value is going to drop.
Well, the thing is, every year, right,
Uh,
he's further into his rookie contract and due
yeah,
for an extension.
yeah.
His value goes down, and then the other things with a lot of these young guys, like you saw of RJ, even if IQ to an extent is, when they're young, right, you see like they can put up numbers on offense, but one, they might not be efficient,
Hmm.
and then their defense is not always there
Hmm.
when they're young, and then also playing within the team, right, doing all the little things
Hmm.
that we that are not tracked in the box score that lead to winning. Because if you're that talented of a player and your team is losing, something's up. Like this, like with Cade Cunningham, he's putting up good numbers. So I'm like, yo, your team isn't that good. Like
Hmm.
you're not doing what your team needs to win. Um, hey Fritz, let's do this this way because I want to make sure I cover everybody.
Hmm.
Uh, well, first of all, I was looking at the buyers, right? So just looking at everybody by ranking, right? Who's in first, second, right? So Boston, I got for them that they need like a bigger point guard because Pritchard's too small, and they also need scoring, right? Because I don't think they got any bench scoring. I think they got if Porzingis is healthy, they got Horford who's really old, and then they got this kid Hauser, which I don't think they're
Yeah.
really gonna trust the playoffs. So do you have any targets for them?
Okay, so they still have picks. Like,
Yeah, they
the,
haven't given
I think
picks.
roster wise, their problem is money. Their problem
Yeah,
is they have huge salaries. They're not going to get guys who are going to get big pay raises. So their problem is big money guys. So I think they're going to take some of these lower price players, and I think they're going to go out and get and
all right.
throw some picks at the problem, and they're going to get somebody else.
I yeah.
They're going to get an impact player, and
I,
they.
well, I got something wild for you. I
Mm-hmm.
just thought about.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So like we talk about, it's the trade deadline. Sure, everyone's talking about trade deadline, but after the trade deadline, you got the buyouts, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people they're like they want a guy, but they're like, why am I going to trade for him if I know the team, might buy him out? I can get him for nothing. So the one guy outside of Kyle Lowry, the other guy I see that's a definite buyout candidate that could make an impact,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is uh is Gordon Hayward.
Yeah. I think is Boston on the list of restricted
So
from. I
no,
think
I think
they're.
that's next year that kicks in the second apron.
Yeah, I think this year. I think it kicks in. As far as the signing, like signing to a minimum deal players that were, um, I think over 7 million. I think.
Right, but like remember the season, like well, maybe not like right now, but like later in the season, right after the trade deadline,
Hmm.
um, the season's almost over, right? So he's already gotten, most of his money.
Hmm.
And on top of that, he's made a boatload of money, right? Because remember the Knicks were interested in him, and then Charlotte came in with the ridiculous offer,
Yes.
and he hasn't lived up to it. And then, you know, he might want to rebuild his stock by being on a good team, right? And what better than to go to where he got hurt, right? Boston, and see. So the other thing is, I know he was hurt. I don't know what his status is, but if
I
he can
believe
get him back,
he's back. I believe he's back. He's just not. He's not playing big
okay,
minutes. Yeah.
okay, because I think it said here
Hang on, hold on.
he would. Yeah, I think he's missed a bunch of games this year.
He's missed a lot.
So, and the other thing too is that, yeah, especially I don't think they're doing so bad. I don't think they're in a hurry
Okay, he's not.
to
Yeah,
play.
he hasn't played the last few games. Actually, he hasn't played in a while.
Right. So the
Unless,
thing is, no one's going to trade for him,
yeah.
and if he can be healthy just for the playoffs, uh, then and then especially Boston, it would be a perfect fit, and then it would be a good story too, right? So anyway, so that's someone I could see kind of Boston um, going after, if everything works out in the with the buyout rules.
Hmm.
Now, for the Bucks, do you have any ideas what the Bucks might do or recommendations?
Well, I know the Bucks. They want to trade the two players they kind of put on the block: Connaughton, Cameron Payne.
What?
Yeah,
Connaughton? That's it.
Connaughton and Cameron Payne. They're willing to give those two up, and I think they're looking for like just an impact player. And I think they need to work on their defense. So it's definitely a defensive player.
All right. Well, here's the thing. Like, I think they got no
I
asset.
think I think I know where they may want to go, but
Where do you think they want to go?
Marcus Smart, if he's available, if they can
Because
get
the
Marcus
thing is,
Smart.
I'm thinking, if I was Memphis, right? Like, I know why they brought in Smart
Yeah.
more as like a mentor guy and glue guy. But I don't know next year if they still want to keep him around.
Hmm.
Um, and he's getting older. Um, and I don't know how they could make the money. Could they make the money work? Because I don't think Payne and Connaughton make much money. So what would
Okay.
be the salary they would send
Payne,
back?
Connaughton. Yeah, may have to put Beauchamp in there actually. Um,
Yeah, because he would be a great fit, right? Especially as a role player, right?
yeah.
You put him in the role, but I don't think they got the salary
No,
to make it happen. Uh,
because ooh,
Yeah, because after Connaughton, everyone's a minimum.
since they're so far over they're in the second apron. They have, you know how usually you have to be within 25%. You actually have to be within 10% because they're in the second apron.
Why? But okay, I thought the second apron didn't go into effect till next year.
Some aspects I think there's kind of rolling it out.
Oh, okay, okay. But all right, hear this one out. The guy I think they should go get, he's in Charlotte.
Oh, for one
No, no,
year.
no, 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 no. Not the guy we talked about.
Okay.
Frank Ntilikina.
Yeah. Yeah.
It costs you nothing to get him. even the coach, right? The coach in Charlotte, who's good friends with Thibodeau. They were both on Van Gundy stuff. He's like, dude, the guy's the best pick and roll defender I've seen. And like I said, I thought he was gonna flourish in Dallas. He didn't. And I think Dallas, I think they had other players, but Milwaukee, I could see them bringing him in. They're like, listen, who else they got? They got nobody, and they don't need his scoring, and it'll cost them absolutely nothing to get. And
Yeah.
he makes, but he could be one of those guys that he come in, gives you 10 minutes, especially playing a long day outside next to Dame and Giannis. So anyway, that would be interesting and it would be fun. As a Knicks fan, we still root for Frank. So
Yeah. I mean, they don't have picks to trade.
well, no,
They're
are you just like? I mean, it'll be like
yeah.
a protected second or something like
Yeah.
what we got for Obi.
Yeah. But yeah, just somebody on the edge of their roster.
Yeah, just because
Um,
he's a minimum guy, just bring him in.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
but
we
they
talked
definitely
about
need the defense. So I think they're definitely looking at defensive guys they can plug in for a run. So yeah.
yeah. Then we talked about Philly, so they need a third scorer. I think like we said, it could be Levine, DeRozan, or
Yeah.
Bogdanovich. Sounds like the way they would go.
Yeah.
I
And
see
J
Cleveland.
Ellis reminded me, yeah, just on I was going with numbers for 76. They only have like 3 players on contract next year. They're like, it's just Embiid, I think Paul Reed and like one other player. And the rest
Harris is not.
he expires this year.
All right.
And I
And
expect
is
them to
he
use him.
get on an extension?
No. No,
Maxi? Maxi's
Maxi
got to be on an extension. There's no way.
he needs an extension.
No, he should be on an extension because if not, he should be.
They haven't paid him yet, but he's gonna get every dime
No,
he's
no,
gonna.
no. But I'm saying is he should have signed the extension already. Just same thing with IQ. Remember that if you didn't sign him
Yeah.
a certain date,
Yeah, I'm not sure why he didn't, because he's gonna get the max. Like at this point,
yeah, I
he's
don't see his extension. That's crazy.
no, they didn't. I don't know what they were thinking, if they thought he
Or
was.
maybe he didn't want because he's also a clutch, just like IQ. So maybe he said, no, I want to test the market. Because what
Yeah.
happened is I don't want to derail the conversation, but pretty much what happened this summer was a bunch of guys got a lot of money,
Hmm.
right? Was the kid in San Antonio who hasn't done much, Vassell.
Yeah.
He got a bunch of money. The kid McDaniels and they both got like 27 million per year over 5 years. So I think that's why IQ
Yeah.
was like, no, 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 I'll hold out. I don't want
Yeah.
your 18 million. And then maybe Maxi was like, what? You're only offering me 27? If these guys are worth 27, I'm worth 35. Who
Yeah.
knows? All
I
right.
think Maxi's gonna get the max. He's gonna get
Right.
that the
Yeah,
absolute
he'll get the
top.
max contract this year. But what Philly has is they got the expiring contracts they got from the Clippers and the draft capital,
Yeah.
right? So somebody who's looking to rebuild or get out of a bad contract
Yeah.
would could sell. That's why I was saying Levine. That sounds like a landing spot because Philadelphia doesn't have any players to send back. So and they might be willing to do it. Indy, I don't know what Indy would need. I think they're pretty good, right?
Indy is
Just stay healthy.
they're in a good spot when they traded for Siakam.
Siakam.
They kind of just jumped the gun. They're not gonna mess with the summer. We're just gonna get Siakam and then re-sign him over the summer. So I think they're kind of set there.
And then
If they do
Miami.
something, it'll be small. If they do something,
Yeah, and,
it'll be Obi. It'll be like Obi out. Sending Obi out somewhere, or
yeah,
but I
very
don't think they're
weak.
gonna do anything huge.
Now Miami, I think they already made their move, right? So they went for Rozier. I don't think they got any more
Mm.
bullets in their chamber. Orlando, I had Orlando like trying to get a bet. Maybe swap out this kid what's his name? His dad played for the Knicks. Shoot.
No, actually, he just got an extension.
Oh, they can't trade him.
Yeah, he just got an extension. They gave him a 4 year.
Anthony.
Anthony, they gave him a
So
3 year extension.
Right. Okay. Yeah, but I could see them wanting like another vet, right?
Yeah,
Like role playing to complement the young
yeah.
guys. Um,
I did
yeah.
have a trade for them. That's when I was just like playing with the numbers, and
All right.
I had like kind of like a wish list of trades, and one of my Nick wish list of trades was getting Jalen Suggs to the Knicks.
Oh, he would be a Nick player.
So
How would this happen, please? I want to believe you.
so I had I don't know.
Quinn Grimes.
So I had Quentin Grimes. So basically, Quentin Grimes goes down there. He becomes the starting shooting guard. Orlando, they lack shooting, so they have a lot of like good point guards, but they can't. They're good like drive the basketball, but they're not good shooters. So Jalen Suggs, basically for Grimes and Fournier, and we got Suggs and Markel Fultz, and then let Fultz expire.
I like
Basically,
Fultz. He's got value. You can move him to
yeah,
can um yeah. But I definitely like Suggs. The other thing is like, could we have enough with Grimes to make that happen?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially they got Anthony Black now, right?
Yeah.
So
Andy Black is their point guard, and they need shooting. That's like their big thing, and they're
he would be ideal to come in and I mean his offense isn't quite there, but he's definitely an exciting player to
yeah.
have
He brings
replace
the defense.
the defense.
Knicks really loved him when he was in the draft because they actually were thinking about moving up in the draft for him. So because they like his leadership. So I think he's kind of like one of those guys where it's kind of like the six man. You have a lineup where if they're playing like a tough team in the playoffs, they can have like an all defensive lineup with OG, Suggs,
Yeah.
you know, and
And
Mitchell
Suggs,
Robinson. That can like be one of those
yeah.
shutdown lineups. But
Yeah.
yeah,
All right. Now Atlanta, I know you talked about them already. So I have them like a team on the fence. And like you said, they want their cake and eat it too. And I think it's the same situation with the GM. Isn't the GM the former Nick?
yeah, Landry, yep, Landry
Manager?
Fields.
So they're actually in an interesting spot because they've done a really good job drafting, right? I've been kind of jealous of the way they've drafted players because they got Jalen Johnson, they got AJ Griffin, um, and they got a couple other guys there too. So they have a nice group of young players. They have nice young vets, and they got some older vets. The other thing, I could see them maybe trying to. I have them on the fence, but I really don't see a move they're going to make. And it sounds like the Jonte Murray experiment has run its course.
Yeah,
So I can see them trying to reload, not rebuild, but reload.
yeah,
And the only thing is, I could maybe see them, maybe not at the trade deadline, but in the summer, move Capella to try to get a cheaper option,
yeah.
right? To see
Capella's
if
kind of
maybe,
on his way out because Okongwu is the guy they gave him a big extension. So
yeah, he got a good extension. And the thing is, I don't think they want to allocate that much money to
yeah,
the center position,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Then we talked about Chicago. I think they got to be sellers. Now in the West, we talked about Minnesota. I think OKC, LA, Clippers. Like I said, I think they need like a big guy, maybe somebody in the buyout market.
Mm-hmm.
Denver. I mean, they seem perfect. I don't know what else they might need, right?
No,
Um, Now Sacramento, you got anything for them?
Sacramento. They want to. I, the names that I've heard, like Harrison Barnes, been toying around. Kevin Herter's on the block.
Mhm.
He's one I was looking at for the Knicks, but like I think it's just his defense. I don't think Tibbs would, but I think
Yeah,
he would be a great fit if it wasn't for the defense. But
I think we got. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he brings anything. Like we need someone who's a more like dynamic
yeah,
scorer, especially if you're not gonna play defense or
yeah,
be a viable one. So
yeah. I
um,
think those days are gone. Like I think previous years, maybe they would tried something like that. But like nowadays, I don't think they would try that. Um,
Yeah. The other guy, and I don't know, like I think it's the same situation happened here with Obi.
mhm.
They drafted Davion Mitchell. Like, they did best player available, which is always what I propose teams do because there's not that many guys in the draft, so you just got
Mhm.
to get talent.
He's on the
But you got
block.
to have a
Yeah.
plan.
Mhm.
But like he's another guy where he slipped in the draft at 10th, and everyone thought he was going to have the same trajectory as Halliburton,
Mhm.
where he would play well and then they could trade him for other pieces. So I could see him being like them trading him to get a comparable talent
Mhm.
at another position of need.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So yeah, they definitely have Davion Mitchell and Herter
yes, I
on
think
the block.
and
Barnes is
Harrison
iffy,
Barnes.
and Barnes, if the person's right, Barnes is on the block.
All right, and then what else I got here? Phoenix. I think they need like a defensive big guy, and they could use another scorer like Bridges we talked
Yeah,
about. They,
they're really after Bridges. I think they'll get Bridges. I think Charlotte. I think
especially Isaiah's there.
I don't think
Isaiah,
Charlotte's going to give him up just yet. I think Charlotte wants to see if they can get more. But
right? They're in no rush. They're
yeah,
gonna wait right to the deadline to see if they get someone to throw in three second round picks or whatever.
yeah,
And I think they definitely need like a defensive big guy because the guys that got there now,
mm,
um, they're not good on defense. So we'll see. New Orleans, I really don't know what they need. I mean, they seem so stacked and
yeah,
deep. Me, it's just like if Zion and Brandon Ingram could stay healthy with McCollum,
yeah,
um, and they're there. Dallas, I think they need a third scorer. Hardaway is not that guy.
yeah,
And
yeah. I
like
think they're
Fournier,
gonna. Yeah,
they gave him a 4th year guaranteed,
Dallas
but I
is
don't know
on.
what they can.
Yeah,
And they're on the clock with Luca. Like they gotta,
yeah. They're on the
show
clock with
something.
Luca. I think Hardaway's kind of on the block. Like they're looking. Hardaway's on the block. Even though they just got Grant Williams, they will trade Grant Williams in a second.
Yeah, he hasn't worked out. Even though
No.
he finally had a good game, but he just hasn't worked
Yeah.
out. But yeah, like there's yeah, there's definitely a talent drop off on that team after Luca and
Mhm.
Kyrie. And then the thing with Kyrie is you just don't know. Now the Lakers, that's another team where, like I said, I think, and I thought Alan Hahn said it correctly. It's funny, all the like Knicks people are starting to LeBron chatter.
Yeah.
I don't want LeBron, but what Alan Hahn said today made sense. It's like you're not going anywhere. The best asset you have is LeBron James. Trade him and just
Yeah.
reload. I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And what they need, because I think they need like a couple of pieces. Because it's funny, they signed the guy from the Miami Heat, right?
Yeah.
Um, and he replaced Kendrick Nunn, who's also from the Heat. So he just kind of replaced him on the injured list,
Yeah.
right? So they haven't had like a healthy Heat guard for like 3 years. Um, so I think like maybe like a Dejounte Murray would help,
Yeah.
right? He would definitely make him better, but it seems like they need like a little bit more than just Murray.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think they want Dejounte. They need help to make it happen because all they have is that 2029 first round pick. Atlanta
Right,
Atlanta not Atlanta wants the salary leave and the starter. So they wanted both. So they need someone to help them out. Somebody.
right.
I don't think anybody wants to do them any favors. Nobody's gonna do.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying is they need like some younger players, right,
Mm-hmm.
who are still on rookie deals or signed an attractive extension, right? So they can just bring down the salaries. Yeah, so I think the Lakers, yeah, they need a wing, and I think they need a little more bench scoring.
Yeah.
Um, and then we talked about Golden State. I think they need another shot creator, scorer, and a big. Right, they're just too small.
Yeah.
And I think the only pieces they have, obviously they need to get rid of Wiggins, who was supposed to be their dynamic shot creator to complement Steph. So they need to upgrade over him, and they need to bring in a big. So to me, it sounds like the only way they can make that happen, if they're not willing to trade Clay, is trade Chris Paul, who's he's on his last knee
Hmm.
and he's not coming back next year. And with Wiggins, the only thing, like I said, the only teams I could see interested in Wiggins is someone like the Bulls, who want to get off of Levine's big deal
Hmm.
and want something more flexible, and they think they can resurrect his career,
Yeah.
or maybe Toronto because it's
Yeah,
home.
but he's also like his troubles this year. They said like he has like I think he has a sick person in his family, and he just can't like like his game has just suffered like his for
Right,
personal reasons. So I mean,
right.
it could
Maybe
be
if he
one of
goes to
those.
Toronto,
Yeah,
at
it could
least
be.
closer to home.
Yeah, it could be one of those things where, I mean, if the Bulls aren't doing nothing, maybe you send him home, and then he's like come back next year. You know
Well,
what I mean?
last year he
You know?
they sent him home for a while, and it didn't work. So who knows?
Yeah, yeah. You never know.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, the other teams I got on this list. So on the fence, I had Utah. I don't think, knowing Danny Ainge, I don't think he's going to fight for the play-in. I think he's going to play the long game like he always does. And I think he's got a bunch of young guys. I think Clarkson makes sense to move on from Clarkson. Olympics expiring. Same thing. I don't think they're in long-term future. Uh, Taylor Horton Tucker, I think he's expiring. So he might also be moved. So I think they're going to move to sellers. And then the teams that have bottomed out, like I said, I think Detroit is our best trade partner. Washington doesn't really have anything we could use or want. And Portland, I don't see Portland making any major moves because, um, well, one, we don't need Jeremy Grant, right? And
not
then
anymore. Nope.
I don't think they're ready to move on from Brogdon because this kid Scoot Henderson, he hasn't progressed as well as they hoped, and the other
Yeah.
kid too short.
Yeah.
So I think they rather keep Brogdon because he's on a good salary and he's a good complement to Simons. And then maybe in the off season or next year,
Hmm.
then to
And
make a move.
yeah, if they get, I think they would deal Brogdon, but they would be way too young. I like you should have a, Scoot's struggling. So I
Right.
mean, you really should have a mentor. He really should have a mentor or
But
something.
you've seen, like, if you've seen Portland, right? Like the few times they've had Aiton,
Yeah. Oh, he looks horrible.
Grant.
Yeah.
No, but if you have Aiton, Grant, Brogdon, and Simons playing big minutes, they're a
Hmm.
competitive team.
Yeah.
They're a 35 win team. And then if these kids pick it up, then they'll play better. And they also have Robert Williams, who's been out for the year, right? So if he comes back next year and he's respectable, they have the core to be a respectable team, unlike Detroit or San Antonio.
Yeah.
And the last team, San Antonio, I don't really see anything San Antonio has that anybody wants, especially the Knicks. So
No. San Antonio. They've always, you know, they kind of always wanted Fournier like this past summer because they,
the French
with
connection.
Wembyana, the French connection, having French teammates, to help Wembyana. So I mean, like if I could see a Fournier's cut or something, that he could end up on San Antonio or something like that. Um, but
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything the Knicks want on there. I mean that they realistically can have. Yeah.
yeah. The other thing I haven't looked into, and I don't know if you've had a chance,
Hmm.
but remember we still have the rights to Rokas,
Yes. So actually,
and supposedly he's played pretty decent in Barcelona.
yeah. So when I was putting out like different scenarios, currently the Knicks are from the tax line. They're like 5.4 million under the tax line. I think if they get a little bit under the tax line, a little bit more under the tax line in a trade, they possibly could use. RJ's trade exception and then sign Rokas because he
Right, because maybe he comes in at the end of the year and he
yeah
takes more shot than
comes
you.
at the end of the year and like sign him and then have all the rest of his years as options. So he does well and he does good, you keep him on next year. He doesn't do well, you cut him.
Or
Or keep
you
him for a year
put
and
him
then
in
if he doesn't do
trade.
well, cut him. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe there's value for him
Yeah.
to throw in a trade package,
Yeah.
right? So
But
maybe a team like Utah, we're like, hey,
yeah.
if you want Clarkson, we'll give you Grimes and Rokas.
Yeah. So I think that might be like the sneak move the Knicks do if they get a few more million because Rokas does owe the team he's on, so he has to
Oh,
pay them
yeah,
back. So it's
that's a
not
good
hey,
point.
it's not like a minimum deal. So I think they probably have to give him maybe like 7 million, and then
Wow.
you know. So I think if they get far enough under, I think they may bring Rokas in now and then sit him on the bench and then have him go through the summer in the summer league and see what happens.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Cool, man. All right, so I you got all my takes. Is there
yeah.
anything else you have to
That
cover?
that's pretty much it. Like so, there's like so many possibilities that can happen. Like if one team does something odd, it could just throw everybody off. I
Yeah,
you know if OKC gets like they get in their eyes that they want someone and they throw something out there, everybody can go out.
I think OKC's got to make a move, and I think we're all gonna be surprised, but I think Levine's gonna get moved
I
as
think Levine,
well.
yeah. I think people are I know they're downing Levine. Yes, his value is low, but I think the Bulls have to get rid of him. It's not like one of those things like we'll just wait because his value is never going to be higher than it is now.
Right. Yeah, the thing is they need the flexibility, and then
Yeah.
you got next year, you don't know what you're gonna get with Ball, right? You
Mm-hmm.
got 20 million in cap space to a guy who's not playing, and another it's gonna be like 21 next year. So at least if they, like I said, they break it up, those 40 million into like $20 million contracts that are more movable,
Yeah.
then they can, they can make something happen.
Yeah.
Because now I think, like you said, no one's really focused on the draft this year. So everyone's gonna be more, and there really isn't any free agents
Yeah.
coming up. So everyone's gonna be really focused on trades.
Yeah. Yeah. So it should be an interesting week. Um, have we went over this little trade deadline preview. Um, I do encourage people to subscribe if they haven't. I just started. I only have a couple of videos. I will update everybody once we do the actual deadline. We'll just talk about what happens at the deadline. Um, this week we have a couple subjects we wanted to go over. Such as talking about, this disqualifications, 65 games, all kind of stuff. We're gonna get into it. So, yeah, thank Ken T for coming. Is there any your socials you want to drop?
No, like I said, I've been laying low. So you know how to find me on X, right?
Yep.
So you've promoted me. So that's good. Said more than anything, everyone to follow you, Fritz, and the Nick of Time show,
Yeah.
right? So
Absolutely. Nick of Time show. Um, yeah, we're there after every game. So, yeah, like to thank Ken for coming through. And yeah, excited about this deadline.
right.
So yep. So we're gonna break out. I have my handles up on here. So yep, hit us up on X,
Right.
and that's it. All
Right.
right.
Thank you for that.
All right.
Appreciate you having me.
Oh sure, no
Right.
problem. All right.